Hi, my name is Ken Asserson. I wrote the Microbiome Prescription website, and this is another one of my weekly reviews of people who asked for their microbiome to be examined in detail. Usually people with atypical cases, which means I have an opportunity to learn a bit more about oddball cases, and they may have trouble working with the site because they are atypical. Okay, here is a interesting person based in the UK. Basically has had what I refer to as the antibiotic apocalypse on the microbiome. Why? Well, if you go down here, we see here all of the antibiotics he has taken recently. A bit. Not just one or two, a massive number of them. So what's the situation from this? Basically, antibiotics were prescribed for legitimate reasons, and the result of which was bloating, gut became bad, basically miserable. I'll let you do the further read. So my job is trying to see if I can use his microbiome sample to suggest a course of action which could improve his situation, hopefully significantly. And that's basically the purpose. Because of the, how would we say, extremity of the situation, it's actually ended up being very easy to do the analysis. So with that much said, I'll just go over and do a quick recap. We'll look at his current state, which you will see in a moment. The percentile ranking, which sometimes shows a bulge in the number of bacteria in terms of how often they are seeing either higher or low. Basically, it's not there. I counted up, and the average is about 13, and there's no real shift to the high or the low end into things, so it's basically not concerned. However, he does have a bunch of things of concern. He has lots of items on adjacent list. He has a lot of potential medical conditions being flagged, and he has 3 bacteria which are particularly high, or should I say sky high, for 3 of them. 2 of them are not healthy predictors. If you're interested, you can click here to read the studies which this information is coming from. So basically that's the high level there, and we're going to look at the antibiotics he was on and see how they relate to his microbiome current state. And then we're going to go through and look at which probiotics he should be taking, and starting to go through and just doing the usual routine I do of trying to define an action plan. Okay, with that much said, I'm going to flip over to the website. So we are his profile. He processed through Biomosite, and you can see it's a recent sample in terms of at least when the upload happened. The breakdown, again, I usually do a quick add up. I actually copy the stuff over to Excel and paste the table, calculate the average standard deviation, and his standard deviation for genus is sitting about less than 4, which means basically it's reasonably well balanced. There's no outlier. For species, it's higher, but species tend to be more volatile in terms of numbers. So let's go ahead and look at the health analysis. Health analysis, we see all the list of things which aren't saying he has it, but his microbiome are similar to people who have those conditions according to clinical studies. So we have a variety of things. He does cite looking like he's pregnant, which probably could be connected with obesity. Not that he's trying to be obese, it's just that his microbiome is there. We have things like insomnia, mood disorders. We have a good collection of different things where his microbiome is so very similar to the pattern reported from these clinical things. Doesn't mean he has it, but often for some of them, if they can be tested independently, it may be useful there. Now, when we go down to bacteria, healthy and unhealthy, we'll see things there. one of which is Calissa, which is low, which actually ends up being that he has a significant COVID risk of having severe COVID because this bacteria is low, according to some studies. Again, magic button, click there, you get shoved over to the studies. Other things which are high, and this one I always enjoy because it's almost saying shit in French. Close enough that it can be amusing. So this is one which is also of concern. People can, if you want to, go and just click and see what you can do in terms of substances to improve or decrease. Click here. One thing is melatonin there. We have antibiotics listed there if you just want to do it with herbal spices. Then we have berberine being one there, or other things. You can just go and do it if you want to be absolutely specific and only care about one bacteria. My usual suggestion is don't be focused on one bacteria alone. There's 800 you are ignoring. It's like focusing on one child when you're teaching a classroom, and there's 800 in the classroom. You may actually be creating more problems for yourself and more work for yourself by focusing on the one rather than trying to work with everybody. Okay, so we have Harlex things. Down here we have that he's at the 35th percentile. And you can see all the not ideals sitting there. So basically it's saying, okay, definitely he has problems. So with that much said, let's go over and see about some particular things to start with. My first suggestion is looking at suggested probiotics. This is interesting because these are suggested not from clinical studies, but based on the genomics of the bacteria in your sample and the genomics of in the bacteria in the probiotic. So what it does, it attempts to identify things which you are abnormally low in and generate suggestion of which probiotics could work to do it. We'll be doing a second way where we are going to be looking at probiotics based on clinical studies. And the ideal situation is when you get the same items being suggested in both lists. Two independently derived set of probiotic suggestions coming to consensus, which means you should have pretty high confidence that those will have a positive benefit to you. So let's take a look at this one and give it a few seconds to calculate. And I was blown away. Perhaps occasionally I see a number up about 200. Not 4,000. 4,000 is way off scale for what I've seen in most samples. So it's definitely abnormal. I went through, and on the blog you can see basically Bacillus coagulus or Bacillus subtilis is what several of these are. More recent is Colostrum brutyricum. And we end up, and Lactobacillus plantarum. So we end up with 3 which are sitting at the top in terms of value, which are available as retail probiotics. And to me, 3 probiotics is enough because I tend to advocate rotation of probiotics, as in 2 weeks on, change the next one, 2 weeks on, change the next one, go back to the first. Why do I advocate that? Because often probiotics work by reducing natural antibiotics, and antibiotic rotation has been shown to be more effective for reducing undesirable bacteria than being a continuous course of one. So basically the purpose is to keep rotating. The analogy I sometimes use is, the first one eliminates 90% of the bacteria. The remaining 10% will start growing back and will be resistant. So you could be back to the same state after 3 or 4 or 6 months that you were, except that now everything is resistant to whatever you use. But if you go on to a second one and it's 90% effective, That means the 10% the remaining, 90% would be eliminated. That means you're left with just 1%. It's going to take a lot longer for that to grow back. And in fact, if you do a third one, you are down to 0.1%. Now, at 0.1%, there's a good chance your body's natural immune system will be able to keep things in check. Hence, the idea of rotating. Rotating ends up being in your favor for trying to get rid of things completely. Staying on the same antibiotic or on the same probiotic means you are encouraging resistors or those who are naturally resistant to the antibiotic or the probiotic to say, ha, 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 you can't hurt me. And they simply start regrowing, and suddenly you say, I did so well for 4 weeks on this probiotic, then it stopped working. The reason it stopped working is the 10% that was left over has moved back in to fill the void that you have created. So hence, probiotic rotation. It is critical if you want to alter your microbiome using probiotics because they produce natural antibiotics. Okay, so that's it. Now let's flip back and look at the supplements. Supplements are done on a similar mechanism, and we end up having a list here. Microbiome is one which is sitting there. It's available as a supplement. Everything on the list are available as supplements somewhere in the world. May not be in your jurisdiction for one reason or another, but they are available somewhere. So basically you have here, and you have two which are very easy, which are minerals, which you can take continuously. So we are now going to build a consensus. Now, consensus means doing a variety of things and then seeing what the suggestions is from all the things, using different criteria for which bacteria to pick or not pick, and then try coming up with a ultra safe list of things to do or ultra safe list of things to avoid. Again, this is not a precise science. It is somewhat of an art, and this is how we do it. The first thing is, most of the top here, although we have different number of criteria, most of the time they come and pick the same bacteria. So all I'm going to do is pick one of them. We have nothing over here, and just going to go and get suggestions. And we see we have 11 bacteria picked, and if you pick here, you can go and see which bacteria were picked. And now we can, of course, can go back and do another one using standard labs. Standard labs is a classic way labs work, which is you get population, you do the average, you calculate standard deviations and work that. Doesn't work well with the microbiome, but many of the commercial labs and direct-to-consumer labs still doing it. And what we do is we find we have more bacteria picked, which is interesting, and we can see things which are too high and too low. Next, we do box plot whisker, which is a common method with data science. It is not depending on things being a bell curve or normal distribution. It does make some assumptions, but it does a reasonably good job. And what do we find here? We have 58 bacteria. Again, just clicking here, you can see which ones has been spotted. We can go back. We can now do cutoff Moulthrop, which looks at the nature of the data curve, and we get a lot more. We get 89 bacteria picked there. Notice for all of these, we do get suggestions at the bottom, or at least a short list. The fact that it's a short list, don't worry about. When the consensus is working, it takes every bit of information and saves it to build up your massive consensus. And so now we can go back to here. And the last one we're going to do is a percentile. I'm back. But now we are actually going to go over and use symptoms. Person has entered their symptoms, and we can go in and take a look. Okay, which ones are symptoms that there are, for example, difficulty staying asleep. if you think back, one of the medical risks he has was insomnia. So I'm going to just go and pick this one, and we could just add that to the list. There, we could at this point of time go over and see if we get any bacteria handpicked for this consensus. And we get a whopping big list of things. These are things which everybody who reports this has a similar pattern of bacteria. We could go and say, okay, that was the weak association. We could try raising our threshold, and no luck. So for weak associations, we have that. What we have left is other things which he shares in common with other people. And for the moment, I think I'll just go for muscular weakness. I'm going to add that to the list. And now we're down to a smaller list. And let's see about a hand-picked list. We still have a big one. Actually, I think it's a little bit bigger. And I'm going to go and up it to expected. Voila. So we end up with two things which particularly stood out in terms of things which, in this case, things which he is short of. So I'm actually going to go back and go down back to the weaker one. So that is all the things which were picked. And now I'm just going to click Get Suggestions, which goes over and gives you the options, and you can custom pick from there. I should point out, okay, well, so there's this. Should point out that you can go and make the same selection with all the other choices on another one of the pages, but that's a separate issue. Okay, so we now have done how many samples? Oops, let's go back. Sorry for the confusion. I had inadvertently clicked somebody else's result, which had basically timed out, and everything was showing 0. And I'm back to where I wanted to be. So let's view basket consensus. So we have here, and the priority is accumulation from here was created at the request of some people, because trying to explain the logic here and apply it for brain fog was difficult, but basically things there. And we can also click here for priority and find out things too. And what you find is that we find that items may be sort of on one, an alternative way of describing it would be on the outer, one being avoid, one be take. But then there are a bunch of items which are vaguely similar, which are all on the same side. Now, why don't I just have one name? And the reason is I'm trying to be faithful to what the study itself did. For example, high red meat diet and high protein diet are technically close to each other, but they're not the same. One study said high red meat, and this is the result. Another one says high protein, similar type of results. But basically we see, okay, no red meat, no high protein, no, again, a repeat. Saturated milk fat, which is a form of protein, milk-derived saturated fat, again, probably suggests no dairy. Then we have a variety of artificial or alternative sugar, saccharin. Where do we have? We have stevia. Elsewhere we have chitin. We have other things, animal-based diet. Again, it echoes rare meat. All of them keep echoing the same thing. This is the type of thing you should exclude from your diet. Now, flipping over on the other side, we can see what you should be taking. I should point out that we have 547 different items. I'm not about to go through a 547 item. What we want to do is look at a general pattern where we get a whole bunch of things saying almost the same thing, which we can actually implement with it. So what we end up seeing up here, okay, here is one probiotic which is generally a bit hard to get hold of. Studies found that it's particularly nice, but the problem is getting hold of it. Inulin, burdock root, there we have a couple of lactobacillus probiotics. Plantarum, you remember, is what we got from looking at genomics. So it's sitting right near the top. We have walnuts, we have soy. So the result is, as we'll see, high fiber diet. When we go down further, we will see that we have things like barley, beta-glucan comes from barley, and everything. So my suggestion would be porridge every day with oats, with barley, with soy milk, not with milk, but with soy milk as a suggestion. You have a variety of thing, cacao, which is not unusual. That tends to show up a fair amount, especially with things like chronic fatigue syndrome. Fruit and legume fiber, I would emphasize more the legume than the fruit. Nicotine, well, if he's a smoker, keep smoking. If he's not, don't take it off, please. Whole grain barley, again, barley, porridge every morning is a good suggestion. Going on, we see wheat, so it's not a matter of gluten. If we want to say, okay, where does the suggestions lie in terms of gluten? Gluten-free diet, a negative. Do not go gluten-free. You're not going to be doing yourself a kindness. And let's go on, and I'm going to flip it up. Remember, you can make it longer page. I'm going to do 100 for a page, so I only have 6 pages of things. I can go down. We see grape propanols. We see grapes elsewhere, but not wine. Alcoholic drinks is a no-no, as you can also see. Dairy, which is interesting. And that one would probably be, if you have any dairy, it should be non-fat milk. Different studies have different results, and reconciling everything is a bit of an art. Selenium is another one which could be there. We have whole grain wheat, we have barley, oats, things like asparagus, sesame cakes, turmeric, bananas, again wheat shows up again, fish oil, magnesium, which was on the other list already, there, and we can go on down, apple skin, lupin seeds, again, slight risk there. Blueberries, so walnuts and blueberries with soy milk, with an oat or barley porridge every day is a strong suggestion. Personally, I'm pretty close to that myself, although I rotate off occasionally. Here we have an oddball. We have beef here. Again, different studies measure different things, and sometimes you have to figure out which side. In general, beef and meat as a whole is negative for a fair number of items. This is a case where it sort of came in unexpectedly. And we can go down and we see Vegemite. Vegemite! He lives in the UK. He's either going to be absolutely happy about that or disgusted. I'll let him. Black raspberry, etc. So that's basically how we get a bunch of suggestions of things to do. You can go and do things like that to filter things. For example, rosemary there is a good one. Marijuana, well, depending on whatever time. And then you get things you may want to avoid. Olive leaf, sage, adrenaline, ginger, and ginkgo. Some of these things are things which often are cure-all people will preach. In this case, it doesn't seem to be. Verbene is another one which is to be avoided. Licorice, slippery elm. So again, these are suggestions. These are not guaranteed to work. The only thing they are likely to do is have higher odds to shift your bacteria in the way which you want it to do, back to normal. Suggestion is to keep on it for at least 2 months, then do a new sample, and then see what has changed. And I've done blog posts comparing samples, and you can follow those with your new samples to see how they compare. Or you can send it back to me, and I would love to do a follow-up post to see how effective the changes are with notes on what you did between. Just because I'm trying to refine the suggestions and I need data to do the refining. Okay, I think that covers just about everything I want to cover in this blog. He has a course of action. He has free probiotics, which I would suggest he starts with a 2-week rotation. He has changes of diet, which may or may not be relevant to him. But basically, my bottom line is every morning, barley or oat porridge with blueberries and walnuts using soy milk. That alone will likely cause some major shifts. Okay, ciao.